spending time doing stuff just for the sake of doing stuff is not driving value. And legacy family businesses need to realize this if they want to be sustainable and viable into the future. What's driving value is having the right person in the right seat, doing what their God-gifted talent is driving them to do. And if that's bringing vision to the organization, then that's what they should be spending all of their time doing so that the integrator can filter those ideas out into the most important ideas they should execute on. That's the way that we should drive value creation. Strengthen the love, the legacy, and the lifestyle in your family business. This is Fearless Family Business. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fearless Family Business Show. My name is Adam Hill. I'm your host, and I'm really excited you're here today because today I want to talk about one of the most important relationships that you can have in your family business. The visionary and the integrator relationship. Now, I'd imagine most of you have heard of the word visionary and what that means, but maybe not so many of you have heard of the word integrator. And I'm going to get into what those two roles are, why they work so well together, and why both of those roles together can create rocket fuel in your organization. But before I jump into that, I want to ask, if you haven't already, please subscribe to this show. It means the world to me, and it helps to get the word out there to other family businesses that there's resources out there to help us all succeed and know that we're not alone. So with that, I'd love to get into this show and talk about the visionary integrator relationship. And first, I'll kind of share from the perspective of my own story. And before I do that, I want to really describe what the visionary and integrator roles are at a very, very high level. The integrator role, both of these seats really sit on top of the leadership team. And they're the tip of the spear of the organization. They really, really drive the vision and the execution of the company. And in particular, the integrator is that seat that drives the accountability on the leadership team, that takes the vision of the organization and puts it into execution and executes on it with discipline and accountability, brings that leadership team together to really execute day in and day out. And the visionary is that big picture person, is the person that comes to every meeting with 100 different ideas, most of them bad, but a few of them really, really good. And they love to stay at 50,000 feet, and they really, really love to creatively solve problems. And those are the two specific types of people that sit in. Those are the roles that really the integrator and the visionary are part of, and you could see that those two seats, those two functions, have inherently different roles in them. It basically serves two different personality types almost, so that actually having one person in both of those seats becomes a big challenge. And that's one thing that was a real big challenge to me when I first became CEO of the company. I didn't know that there was a difference between a visionary and an integrator in the organization. We just knew that there was a CEO, a president that was in charge of being the face for the organization and running the company. And that's what I became when I first came into the role at my family's business. And what I found in those first few years, and I've talked about this idea that I didn't really feel like I had a real good grasp on my leadership identity early on. I really, really struggled to find my identity. And I was really floundering in that role because I felt like I was being really pulled into the day-to-day and trying to drive this execution on this vision that I was also trying to create on the side. And it felt like I was having this whiplash of being pulled in so many different directions. And I really struggled in that role. And it wasn't until I learned about EOS and started digging into EOS that I realized that there are these two unique and individual functions that sit on top of the leadership team that basically drive the leadership team, that are called the visionary and the integrator. And ideally in companies perform better when those two seats are filled with individual people that really excel in those roles. And I learned over time that my particular strengths were more closely aligned with the visionary role. And I really aligned more with being that family business visionary, the face of the organization, the person that loved, as you could probably tell, to get in front of the team and really, really talk and share that vision and really come up with ideas and get creative. That's where my energy was drawn to. But when it came down to the holding people accountable or having specific discipline and accountability within the team, that's where I was getting drained, and that's where I was getting pulled into the day to day and all of that stuff that I wasn't necessarily great at. And so that's where I found that it may be a better idea to separate those two roles out. And that's really what drove me to understand more closely the visionary and integrator relationship. And of course, EOS helped us to do that. It helped us to take away the whiplash, because the whiplash that I was feeling in the organization, being pulled in all these different directions, was being felt within the organization as well. I was creating whiplash by filling both of those seats at the same time. So that's what really created this sense of heaviness on me as a leader. And it became much lighter when I recognized it. We started to move forward with making those two different seats distinct. Now, what I've seen in many family businesses, including our own, is this common misconception that that the leader of the organization, that the CEO, the president of a family business, should be the face of the organization, should drive the vision, and also execute on it at the same time, that they need to be everything to everyone. And I think the reason that that misconception exists is because in many legacy companies, many multi-generational family businesses, that's really the way that it's always been done. There's a sense that that's the way we've always done it. And so why can't this generation do it as well? Well, in reality, I mean, the generational dynamics change, but where a founder of a company may have to fill a lot of different roles simply because they're the only one working in the business. As they grow, they may be delegating out certain roles like finance, or delegating out different functions like finance or sales and marketing or operations. A lot of times they don't really realize that they can delegate out the execution, that integrator role as well. And that is a pretty challenging seat to delegate out because, frankly, it requires a high level of skill. But the greatest businesses on the planet recognize that living into that specific skill set and hiring for that specific skill set of integrator can make the biggest difference, one of the biggest differences to the performance of the company over time, freeing that vision up. And so that idea that we need to continue to do things the way that we've always done them and keep those two functions the same person, it holds companies back. And it does create that whiplash. So I would challenge you within what I'm going to talk about to have an open mind about as to how this might fit into your organization. So why do companies insist that those two roles should be the same, or those two functions should be the same seat, basically, that the CEO should fill that? Well, I think because a lot of legacy businesses treat it as a sacred cow, as we kind of remembered. It's the way that they've always done it, and that causes a lot of challenges. So why should we change now? There's a sense that we did it this way. Why can't the next generation do it this way? And the reality is, we're shifting away from this. If you want to bring value to an organization, you have to shift away from the time card culture. And what I mean by time card culture is that we're punching a time card, that we have to have a butt in the seat for 8, 9, 10, sometimes 15 hours a day in many businesses. And that is the measure of value. Time, just spending time doing stuff, is not a measure of value. And that's something that we need to shift away from. And when we can shift away from that and into the culture of value creation, a culture of value creation, we realize that the time spent doing stuff does not matter. And legacy family businesses need to realize this and get on this page if they want to be sustainable and viable into the future. Spending time doing stuff just for the sake of doing stuff is not driving value. What's driving value is having the right person in the right seat, doing what their God-gifted talent is driving them to do. And if that's bringing vision to the organization, then that's what they should be spending all of their time doing, and driving that vision, putting those ideas out there, putting the 100 ideas out there so that the integrator can filter those ideas out into the most important ideas that they should execute on. That's the way that we should drive value creation. So time spent doing stuff does not matter. The value that you put in, the value that you create does matter. It's the capacity to create maximum value that matters in that. So let's talk about why these seats and these functions of Visionary and Integrator should be separate in your organization. The first one is kind of along the lines of what I was just talking about with regard to creating a value culture. It prevents this burnout at the very, very top level of the organization. If you are relying on one single person to drive your vision, to create a powerful vision, to lead from that place of being the optimist, visionary, and also execute on it and drive accountability throughout the organization, doing all of the day-to-day things to make that happen and drive leadership, well, you're missing out on a lot of value. You're pulling that person in two different directions and you're burning that leader out. That's the way I was feeling in my organization, quite frankly. And it created this inevitable exhaustion that I could not get over. And I wasn't able to add my best use of value, even if I was putting in 60, 80 hours a week into that seat. I was not able to give the value I could because I was exhausted. I was tired. I didn't have the emotional and the mental capacity to do both. If you're a family business owner or operator and you're looking to get more control over your business, I would love to talk with you. I want to give you a special invite to request a free 90-minute workshop with me to learn the powerful tools of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Just shoot me an email at adam.hill@eosworldwide.com. Again, that email is adam.hill@eosworldwide.com. I'll put that in the show notes as well, and I look forward to talking to you soon. You really can't be innovative and focus on execution at the same time. There's a philosopher by the name of Kurt Gödel who said that you cannot simultaneously be a part of a system and at the same time understand how that system works and drive that vision. You need to have some level of separation there. It's easy to feel in a family business the weight of legacy on you, that you are driving this legacy towards the future. And a visionary carries that weight heavily. To have to execute on it and be in the accountability phase, that's a lot. The second reason why these seats and these functions should be separated in your organization is because in line with that, it brings a stable balance between the big ideas and the execution of those ideas. If the visionary is focused intently on bringing big ideas to the table and is able to, sit in those meetings, drive those ideas, and understands that the majority of those ideas will not be captured. Through all of those ideas, through the filtering process of the leadership team, the integrator can execute and hold the team accountable to the 2 or 3 that might actually happen, that might take place. This goes along with a core focus line. There's one of the 8 questions in the Vision Traction Organizer of EOS is this idea that you want to create a core focus for your organization. It's your sweet spot. It's the place where what you're great at meets with your highest, with your highest value, where where people will pay you for what you're great at, and what you love to do. So it incorporates your passion and your niche, basically. And a lot of times visionaries, because they have so many different ideas, they get distracted very easily. And if you have had a founder of your organization and maybe in your business, you've been performing very, very well for the series of years or decades, And all of a sudden, the visionary or the founder gets kind of bored and they start going down another path. They start to look at different ideas that they can incorporate into their business. Well, without that filter of what the best ideas are that are aligned with that core focus, what happens is you get distracted and you start diluting your focus into multiple directions so that the thing that made you millions of dollars in the first place starts to get overshadowed by all of these other distractions. And if there's no governor on a visionary, that's what might tend to happen. You have this tendency to go in a million other different directions. The people in the organization are getting whiplash because they don't know which direction they're going. And ultimately it affects the morale of the individuals in the organization because so many of those ideas go dormant, or they don't get followed up on, or they don't get executed on. That happens a lot where the visionary is sitting in the same seat as the integrator. So you want to make sure that you're preventing that chaos and having that filter of the integrator in there. And that's where the balance comes in. And the third thing the third reason why you want to separate out these functions in your organization is it strengthens the accountability and makes more firm the decision-making. If you have a visionary and an integrator that are working together to get on the same page with the direction of the company and where you're going, and that integrator can take that idea and execute on it, you now have basically a twofold approach, a two-person approach to driving that vision deep down into execution. You have a unified front instead of just a visionary with the crazy ideas continuing to come to the table. You have a united front between the visionary and the integrator, driving it into the business. And then they can hold the teams accountable through the processes and procedures that they put into place. And if the integrator is in charge of managing that execution and holding teams accountable, well, the visionary doesn't serve as the obstacle to getting those things done. Family businesses often struggle with the idea of right people, right seats. I mean, a lot of times family members will not be the right people, right seats for this. But it offers the opportunity to have the right set, to look at the right set of talents and capabilities, what you're great at, what you love to do, and align them with the seat that you are able to sit in, getting the right people in the right seats. And then the next reason why you want to separate out these two functions is because it's creating a healthier leadership dynamic. This goes along a lot with what we've been talking about with regard to visionaries hold on to the reins of creating the vision, having the big ideas. Integrators hold on to the reins of accountability and execution. And it gives a lot more freedom under that particular category. And if you're a founder, if you're maybe in the first generation and you've created this business on your own, it could be very difficult to let go of that execution, let go of the reins of execution. And the reason is because you've been controlling this baby of yours, this thing that you've created from scratch. And you've built it to a point now where you still want to control it, but the level of complexity has grown so much that it's almost outside of your control now. And it became that way. It became this beast of a company because, like, right under your nose, you didn't even realize it was happening, because ultimately, the more layers that you bring onto the organization, the more people, the more parts of culture, the more processes, the more products, the more revenue, the more customers, each of those adds an exponential layer of complexity to your organization. And that additional layer of complexity, it just happens kind of insidiously to the point you don't recognize it until it happens. And then you feel like you've lost control over it. And yet, sometimes our egos drive us as the founders to believe that we are the only people, as the founders of the organization, that can do it. But if you can actually successfully, objectively remove yourself from that role and ask yourself, can somebody execute on my vision better than I can with where the company is at now? Can we break through that ceiling and get to the next level? That is an important question to ask. And you're able to right person, right seat yourself and realize where you can drive your greatest value, and you find greater freedom in the process. And that's ultimately what you've wanted as a founder. Why you became an entrepreneur in the first place was to find that freedom. So embrace it. This is an opportunity to embrace freedom. In addition, as the founder of the organization, if you're generation 1 or 2 and you've been building this company, sitting in those 2 seats as the visionary and the integrator, what it does when you're able to separate that out effectively is, yes, it does give you the capacity to grow. It also gives you the capacity to build a structure for a smooth transition to the next generation or an exit from the company, because the entire company and the entire success on the company isn't just resting on your ability to perform and create a vision and execute on it. It's based on a structure. And in the world and creating these systems, you want to build a structure first before you populate it with people. If the entire company is dependent on you to be successful, then you don't have a successful organization. You're just holding this thing together with duct tape and string. If you build the structure that is sustainable and strong to do that with a powerful visionary and integrator relationship, you can drive that execution in your organization to the point where it is self-sustainable, even without you. And that's ultimately what you want in an organization. That's what sets you free. And that's what makes you scalable. And that's what helps you align you with longer term success. When you can effectively remove yourself from the equation of your own business, yes, it feels scary. Yes, it feels like maybe a part of you is dying and yes, it feels like maybe you might become irrelevant. But that is the ultimate success that we should be looking for, is building a business that can operate without us, that can operate with the right people in the right seats, even when we're not there. You want to be able to be able to remove yourself from the business. And that's where businesses become scalable and you build that opportunity to succeed. So those are some of the most powerful reasons I think you want to implement the visionary and integrator relationship in your business, where you want to separate those 2 functions out so they're filled by the right types of people. So now the question is, how do you implement it in your business? Say you're the visionary and you're filling that integrator seat right now, and you would like to maybe remove yourself from that. I think it all starts with a conversation. If you're running on a system like EOS, and EOS is a great system for this, then you can always bring it up in the leadership team and start to talk about it. Start to talk about it in an open and honest fashion. Find out what the feelings in the leadership team are, what the insecurities are, what the expectations are, how is everyone feeling about that, and ask yourself that. And in addition, you have to assess your strengths. You have to decide if you're the right person for that integrator or visionary seat. And one of the best ways to do that within the structure of EOS is a tool that we call GWC, get it, want it, capacity to do it. When you look at the roles in the visionary seat and the roles in the integrator seat, and you see that the visionary is the big idea person, the person that loves to stay at 50,000 feet, that loves to bring all these ideas to every meeting. Is that something that you get, that is part of your DNA, that you get up every single morning and you just completely understand how the pieces fit together in that you want to build those big relationships, that you want to be the face of the organization, that you just get you get the dynamics of how that visionary role works? Is that something you get? Do you want it? Is this something you want? Do you jump out of bed every morning excited to come up with those ideas and bring them to the leadership team and get rejected on most of them? Does that excite you to bring all of that element of creativity? Do you get energized by it? If so, you may be a visionary. And do you have the capacity to do it? Do you have the capacity to the emotional, the intellectual, the time capacity to devote to bringing those ideas? And can you handle a lot of the rejection of most of those ideas coming to the table? The same is true for the integrator. You have to ask yourself, do you get that? Do you get that seat? Do you get do you have it in your genetic encoding to be able to hold people accountable? Do people naturally do what you say and execute well? And are you able to course correct and have the difficult conversations? That is something that you have to inherently get. You also have to want it. You have to desire to have those difficult conversations, to desire to hold people accountable, to desire to see the positive and negative effects of the work that you're doing. And then finally, do you have the capacity to do it? Do you have the intellectual and the emotional capacity to hold people accountable, or does it weigh too heavily on you? Being honest about that tells you which seat that you should best be sitting in. And then you can really assess your strengths on there and discover where your best use of time really is. And when you've identified that, maybe you are best equipped to be a visionary. Maybe you're best equipped to be an integrator. Now the job is to find your counterpart. Find that person that when you two are in sync, you are creating that rocket fuel for the organization, and you're bringing that. And that just involves finding that core values fit, being patient with making sure that you're finding the right person to fill that seat, and that they want, and have the capacity to do the seat that you're filling. It could be an internal position or an external position. It's you may be bringing somebody in from the outside or from the inside. It's really up to you to determine what's right for your organization in that instance. And again, conversations with your leadership team really help with that, because that brings that transparency, that openness, and that honesty. And then what you really have to do, and this is the difficult part, is if you're a visionary and you're hiring that integrator, you have to give them the authority to do their job, even when the decisions are painful, especially when the decisions are painful. That integrator will be the fearless leader in your organization. It's very likely that you, as the visionary, may have to step away from those level 10 meetings or your weekly meetings so that the integrator can start driving that accountability effectively. And now your role, your function is to meet with your integrator on every few weeks, once a month, and have a same page meeting so that you get on the same page, you solve those high level issues, and then you walk out of there aligned on where you're going so that the integrator can drive that accountability within the level 10 structure. It's a hard thing to let go of, but it's absolutely necessary if you want to be successful and you want to succeed. Again, don't focus so much on the time card culture, on how much time you have to spend in there, but focus more energy on where your best use of value is and commit to it. Build that trust. When you can effectively let go to the right person and have that incredible visionary and integrator relationship, you're going to build a lot of trust, not just between the two of you, but also within the organization, because the organization is going to see how the two top people in the organization are working together effectively to drive it. And the culture comes from the top down, and you'll be able to create the culture that you want. So remember, if you walk out of this with anything, remember that there is relief, that you don't, as a visionary, as the CEO of your family's business, you don't have to do everything, nor should you. You should be delegating. And if you are in the position to do so, you should be looking into an integrator, somebody who is able to drive that accountability into the organization. Or if you are that integrator and you're just struggling with a vision, you should be looking for a visionary to drive that vision. One of those two things you should be doing, and you should be building this powerful relationship. So the challenge I have for you is a challenge maybe that hits your ego. It may be a challenge to the ego. It may be a scary question to ask. But chances are, as I anticipate, I'll bet you've already asked yourself this question, and you may already know the answer. Are you in the right seat? Are you practicing the best use of your value? And if you're wearing many hats, this may be the right time to think of which hats you want to take off and give to someone else, someone who can do it effectively and who is dying to be able to do it for you. So that's the visionary integrator relationship, one of the most powerful relationships that you can have in your family business, and one that is often neglected in family businesses. I highly encourage you to look into it and think deeply on it. It may just change the nature of your business. So thanks for joining me today. I really want to encourage you to subscribe to this podcast and give me a 5-star rating. It really helps to get the message out there, and I'd be grateful for it. And if you like this episode, share it with a friend. If anybody can, if there's somebody out there that's wearing too many hats, share this episode with them so that they too can discover the power of the visionary and the integrator. Thank you for joining me today. We'll see you next time.